folks, allow me to introduce Katherine Burrows. Katherine Burrows Creative is the name of her company. And what she does, she helps purpose-driven experts make a bigger difference by getting their big ideas into books and out into the world. As a big impact ghostwriter, she's known internationally for intuitive understanding, perceptive observations, and ability to write accurate descriptions. Very handy for books. Katherine hosts the Right Connection podcast, and she helps choose the right words and stories in your business to create an authentic connection. That's very important. Katherine's personal alchemy of literary storytelling, human psychology, business marketing, and unwavering passion provides her with a unique and powerful insight to bring out the authentic character of the expert in business in a voice, your voice. That will improve lives, influence others, and even change the world. And Katherine, over to you.
Thank you so much, Bernie, and thanks everyone for being here today. I love writing and I love talking about stories, so this is such a fabulous opportunity. I spend a lot of my day talking about writing. I'm not sure if you realize it, but maybe you do too, as you're writing emails, writing social media posts, preparing for a presentation. But what I've found in over 13 years of being a professional writer and a professional ghostwriter is that many experts are not connecting. Not being recognized the way they want to be recognized as the thought leader in their field, and not making the income that they would like to make for the lifestyle that they want. So why is that? Well, their content is just not connecting. So they may be posting a lot of stuff randomly. They're hoping their ideal client is somehow going to mysteriously connect with it. They're busy trying to keep up with the trends, but not really getting very authentic with putting themselves out there. So if you are interested in strongly connecting, being well recognized as a thought leader, and making that income you know you deserve, type yes in the chat. Awesome. I'm so glad that you're all in the right place today. So a business book can do all of those things for you. It's going to showcase your brand and your values, your offering, and your success stories through case studies and testimonials of people that you've worked with that have made amazing transformations. What word comes to mind when you think about writing a book? Maybe fear, maybe overwhelm. Type your word in the chat. I want to see what you guys think about writing a book. Okay, I'm seeing lots of time, length, lots of work, arg. Okay, I like that one. Where do I start? Impossible, too busy, organization, time, audience, targets. Okay, so don't worry about all that. We're going to work together through it today. So what I want to cover are the top 5 reasons that you may be avoiding writing your book. Do we even need a business book? And the 5 vices that are going to help hold together your published business book. So when I was little, I always loved reading. And I used to read at night underneath the covers with my flashlight, and my mom would come in and she'd say, lights out, and I would keep reading. I would read sometimes till 2 or 3 in the morning, and she had to come and take that book away from me and take it to her own room so that I would stop reading and get the sleep that I needed. And I still love reading. My husband can tell you that I've often said to him, just one more chapter, honey. So it's still with me today. And I really believe in the power of books and business books in particular. But even for myself, I wasn't convinced that I needed a business book, because as a ghostwriter, most of what I do is behind the scenes. I told myself I was too busy writing for other people to write my own book. I told myself I need to get my work done first before I can play, because I've always wanted to write a book. So that's the fun part, and I need to earn that. But eventually I decided that I needed to walk the talk. So I began writing my own book. And to this day, I still take many, many books with me when I go on vacation. And if anyone can identify with that, 5 or 6 books in your suitcase, and then you're buying another 2 on the way. But a love of reading doesn't always translate into a love of writing. So I want to talk about the 5 myths or beliefs that might be holding you back from writing your book. And these are beliefs that have come from other people, sometimes in our childhood, maybe from an earlier career experience, but we really need to conquer those in order to move forward. So the first one is the money myth. So we focus on, what is the value of writing a book? What is the ROI? And I've heard people say it, well, my book's going to be what, $20, $25 a copy. I'm not going to get rich doing that. Why should I bother? But the thing is, we need to focus on the long-term value of the book. So yes, you probably won't get rich just by looking at the sticker price, but you need to look at the value that it's giving you by building that know, like, and trust factor, by building your credibility and authority, and giving you a place to put all of your wisdom and insights. So when I was considering my own book, one of the things that I asked myself was, how many new clients would I need to get from this book in order for it to pay for itself? Does anybody have an idea of what that number might be? If you do, you can type it in the chat. How many new clients do you need to pay for that book? If you don't know, I'm going to suggest that the number is less than 5. For myself, I figured out it was 2. After you've gotten those 2 to 5 clients, guess what? Your book is still making you money, because it's going to keep bringing in new clients year after year. The second myth that I needed to overcome was the competition myth. There's so many books. Why would anyone read mine? I'm not famous. I'm so enjoying talking to you, I totally forgot I was supposed to be writing this down. But less than 1% of Canadian businesses, and sorry for anyone who lives outside of Canada, but my stats are from Canada, less than 1% of businesses are publishing a book in any given year. So when we promote our book to the right people, using their language, showing that we understand their problems, and providing the value that they want and need, we can eliminate the competition. So that myth is gone too. The third myth is the content myth. I don't know what to write about. I don't have any big story like going through a cancer scare, or climbing Mount Everest, or flying to the moon. Although I'm still hoping Elon Musk is going to help me with that last one. Who here thinks they don't have enough content to write a book? Type it in the chat. No content if you think you don't have enough content. Well, I'm going to suggest that you do. You do have content. If you have blogs, if you have a podcast, if you have a YouTube channel, if you've done a keynote speech, or if you have online courses, all of those can be used for content. I love it, Diana. You think you have too much content. Well, you need a good editor. I know someone. The fourth myth is the tech myth. I don't know where to start. I'm worried I'm going to have a lot of new platforms or memberships. They're going to cost money. I'm going to have to take time to learn them. Well, think about the time and energy that it takes to do it yourself, or you can hire a publisher and you can delegate. And that is what I chose to do, was delegate. The publisher takes me through all the steps, provides all the information I need to make decisions, cover art and formatting and all of those things, but there's no overwhelm. So does anyone here know someone who's had a book published? Okay. You can ask those people that you know to introduce you to their publisher. Start writing while you're doing this, and then check out those publishers, check out their websites, and I would suggest that you book a Zoom call with your top 3 choices, the 3 that really resonate with you, and have a conversation. Get some more information. They're not going to charge you for a simple Zoom call, and then make a decision from there. So you don't really need to know everything about the tech. You can delegate and you can keep focusing on working in your business. Number 5 is the time myth. I don't know how long it will take, or I definitely know I don't have the time. Let me ask you, how long do you think it takes to write a book? Put your answer in the chat. Days, weeks, months, years, whatever you think is appropriate. Okay, I got 3 months, a year, 6 months, 2 weeks, around a year, 1 year. Well, the thing is, we often think it takes longer than it really does. It doesn't need to be 200 or 500 pages. You can have a book that makes a really big impact with only 100 pages. So we're not talking about the Lord of the Rings trilogy, which, by the way, comes in at 1,241 pages. This is your clear, concise business book that is filled with actionable steps your reader can take to improve their lives. Stephen King recommends that new writers write for about 30 minutes a day. And he says that will give you about 300 to 500 words. So if you were to write Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for 30 minutes a day, your book would take about 20 weeks or about 4 months to get 100 pages. Does that seem doable to you? Let's type yes in the chat if that sounds doable. 30 minutes a day, 3 times a week. You think you could handle that for 4 months? Awesome. Hell yeah, I like it. Okay. Great. So now we've taken care of all these myths. We don't have them getting in our way anymore. It's running in. Let's stop and ask, do we even need a book? I would say absolutely yes, we do. Books have a lot of power. We know that stories have been told for thousands and thousands of years. Long before we even had the written word, stories were told orally and passed down from generation to generation. And even today, about 65% of all human conversation takes the form of stories. Stories are how we make sense out of the world and how we attempt to control the world. When stories are action-oriented, they cause the release of cortisol, which makes the reader, viewer, or listener feel that story so much more intensely. When we have stories with strong characters, it makes the release of oxytocin, which causes a feeling of bonding and empathy, so we can really identify with those characters. And when there's some sort of pleasurable event happening in a story, such as a resolution of tension or solving of a problem, dopamine is released, and it helps us to remember stories better. There's research that shows information presented in stories is remembered 22 times better than facts alone. 22 times better. That one still blows me away. So when you have characters and emotion together, it helps provide better understanding of a story and better recall, even weeks later. So how many of you want that for your business? You want people to remember your business. You want them to identify with you. You want them to feel strongly, positively about you. And you want them to recall you weeks later. Just to bring that point home, let's do an experiment right here, right now. I want you to close your eyes, and I'm going to give you 2 descriptions. Description number 1. Ted, 65, is an avid golfer, now retired from his accounting firm, which he sold last year. Ted's son, Jack, 38, is an entrepreneur whose company builds fitness apps. They are on a mountain climbing trip celebrating Ted's 5 years in remission from cancer. So that's our description with the facts. Now, keep your eyes closed. I'm going to give you a description with a story. It was a warm August evening in the Rockies. Jack took a moment to admire the setting sun, then crouched down, extending his right hand to his father and helping him over the last outcropping. They had reached the plateau where they would make camp for the night. It hadn't been easy for Jack to get time off work, but building fitness apps for other people would have no meaning for him if he couldn't take a long weekend to celebrate the health of his own father. It had now been 5 years since Ted was declared in remission, and Jack was grateful for that fact every single day. Okay, feel free to open your eyes again. So you can see how weaving the facts into the context of a story makes it much more memorable, powerful, and impactful. In this day and age where we have increasingly short attention spans, we've got memes that you can look at a glance, we've got character limits on social media, people crave stories. I'm going to write that down because I love that. People crave stories. That's so important. And we see this with the success of the Star Wars series, the Game of Thrones series, the Marvel universe. And part of that, yes, is escapism. We want to get away from whatever's going on in our real lives, and we just want to veg out on the couch and watch some TV. But a lot of it is the pull to identify with stories. Stories that teach us things, stories that let us explore our values, stories that connect us with our heritage, our traditions, our culture, our family. Stories that give us hope when we feel discouraged. Stories that let us explore our own identity and figure out a little bit more about who we are. So this pull to identify with stories is something that businesses can really take advantage of to connect with their ideal client. Your ideal client will want to see themselves in your story. It's not about forcing your product or your service on someone. It's about really connecting naturally, dynamically, organically with those people who really are the right fit for that exchange of value that you're seeking. So when you build that know, like, and trust factor through storytelling, Your ideal client will naturally self-select their participation with your brand, and your offering will just sell itself. So now I want to cover the 5 vices that you can rely on to get the job done with writing and publishing your business book. Okay, vices are something that holds things together. Think about a vice grip that's holding a piece of wood while you're putting a nail into it. Possibly 2 pieces of wood together, because why would you put a nail in one piece? Anyway, I think you get the point. So the first one is voice. And I've developed something that I call my business character analysis, which I do with every client as part of finding their voice. It's an in-depth interview, and I look at the different characteristics they have and how those characteristics of who they are really benefit their ideal client. And then that analysis that they get becomes the foundation of everything I write for them going forward, which ensures that the content and the book remain consistent, and that's a huge part of being authentic. The I is for intention. So that's your plan for your book. It involves your outline, so a brief overview of what your content will be, the audience, who's your ideal client, who are you really writing this book for, who are you hoping to connect with, your purpose, what purpose does this book serve in your business? Maybe it's going to accompany an online course. Maybe it's going to be something that you give out for free at speaking engagements as a form of business card. There's lots of different options. So when we look at what your business goals are, then we can figure out how you're going to use that book. And I like to use what I call my creativity intensification strategy to help create all of those intentions into one place and refer to them moving forward. The C stands for content. So I will combine the business character analysis and the creativity intensification strategy with that subject matter expertise that my clients have in order to create content that is relevant, relatable, and real. So it's relevant to that ideal client. They can relate to it because you're coming across as a human being. And it's real, it's true. You're not making this stuff up. It's stuff that actually is true about you. And that's the kind of content that really, really resonates. It gives you that credibility and authority that shorter content doesn't do, because you're not spending as much time. With a book, your ideal client or your reader is really spending a good chunk of time with you. And even at 100 pages, that has a huge impact. It demonstrates the shared values they have with you, what it's like to work with you, and the results that you've already achieved for real people just like them. So they believe that they can achieve those results with you as well. Elevation. Once we get a rough draft of our content going, it's time to elevate it. So that's when we bring in a suite of editing services, getting a fresh pair of eyes on it, and taking into account the client feedback as well. Because of course, I would never be publishing anything that my client did not approve of first. So they always have the final say. And then we send the book out into the world with a book launch to provide service to your readers, to your ideal client, to your audience. You promote it, you raise awareness about it, and you repurpose the content on all of your different platforms, socials, podcasting, courses, wherever you are, and keep serving those ideal clients. So that was a lot of stuff I just went through. Does anyone have any questions they would like to ask me?
So Katherine, great job.
Thank you.
I love your
Katherine,
acronym there too.
Catherine, do you recommend using an editor and or like Grammarly as you're writing, or just write free flow when you're writing?
Just write free flow. In your
Tongue
first
twister.
draft,
Sorry.
you don't want to worry about editing it. You just want to like brain dump those ideas out there. And then step 2, you'll figure out what ideas really need to be in the book and how to clarify and condense them.
Mayank, you had a question?
I have a question. So I also typed in the comment about the length, because length determines people's, interest to read it or not. For example, if I want to write a book, I want to write a book in a way where people can keep it as like a pocket thing. They can read it in one shot or maybe 2 shot, and then they can just, let's say they want to read it again, so they can do that instead of having big books, Rich Dad Poor Dad, 500 pages, which needs a hell lot of willpower to read it. I would like to have like a tiny book, maybe 100 pages. So what would you say to that? Do you think that having a book of 100 pages will have more audience, more sales, and more engagement as compared to a book with more pages, 400, 500, 600 pages?
Well, it's certainly more appealing to have a shorter book because it's less of an investment to read it. Like you said, it's more portable. They can throw it in a pocket or a briefcase or the purse or whatever. They can take it in their suitcase when they're traveling. So there's lots of ways that you can use it. And it really can still get a huge amount of content across and make an impact. So I think 100 pages is a fabulous idea.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Does
Any
anyone?
questions? We got anybody here? Oh, Earl.
So what's the biggest obstacle? You mentioned obstacles, but there must be one that's the toughest one, because I thought about this for quite a while, but yeah.
Do you mean for me personally or in general?
Well, for you and in general as well.
Well, for me, the biggest challenge is usually getting concise. I was always one of those students who, for a 5-page assignment, handed in 10 pages. But I do much better at it now. And I really enjoy the challenge of trying to get the message across in a very simplified yet impactful way. So it's not simple, but it's simplified. It's concise, it's clear. And we want to give the reader those actionable steps that they can take to get results right away. In general, I think it's the content. People don't really know what they want to say. Wow, I have these 100 blank pages I have to fill. What am I going to put in them? What's going to be the right thing to say? Does that
there's one
resonate? Does that resonate with people? I think that's great.
If you have a lot of things to say, how would you make sure what should be in chapter 1, what should be in chapter 10? That's another problem. If you have a lot to say and a lot to write, how would you start? What would be the content for chapter 1 or lesson 1, and what would be in the middle, what would be in the end? That's another big obstacle, on the way to writing a book.
It is, yeah. So, and stories can help us find that logical order. So whether it's chronological order of steps that you went through in a timeline, or whether that's a logical order, steps that build on each other. You have to do A before you do B, before you do C. So definitely during the planning stages, we would talk about that and figure out the best order for the book and audience.
And so, Katherine, I guess if there's a lot, then maybe they're already planning for a sequel. Oh.
It's true. I really think that 3 or 4 shorter books would be more impactful than one long 500 or 600 page book, because again, it's just so much easier to consume.
We've got another question from Anna.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Great presentation. Very good points you're drawing out. And when I wrote art, it's just because you're already writing articles on LinkedIn. So it's another thing of writing. Anyway, I noticed that you in the beginning said that testimonials, blogs, and things like that could provide material for the book. But what if you don't do those things? What if you have chosen, for instance, I can use myself an example, it's always the best. I just publish once a month an article on LinkedIn, and that's literally it. Everything else is one-to-one contacts, face-to-face via Zoom or whatever. So what if you are a business that deliberately choose to not spend your time on writing here and there and everywhere, but literally you still have a message, because that's why you're in business. You still have a message, you still have some beliefs, you still experience a lot of struggles to get where you are today. But I just think it's important that this also could be relevant for even a new business, because there's a lot of new beginners out there that really has they're very passionate about things, and they really want to get across to their potential customers or even other connections. So what is your answer to that?
Well, I'll tell you a secret. You don't have to write anything. You can speak it. I have clients, I just tell them, throw on your Zoom, hit record, and talk to me. I don't even have to be on the call. You can do that at a different time. And then I'll transcribe it. So they can sit there and talk to me about their ideal client. They can talk to me about the steps that someone goes through with their offering or program. They can talk to me about the goals for their book and whatever content they want to put in. I also have an option to interview someone. So that does take a little bit more of my time. It's a bit higher price point, but I will sit down and interview you and draw the information out of you. And thank you, Diana, for saying that. 12 chapters in a year. So if you do have those 12 articles, that's also something we can expand on. I recently had someone who did a 30-minute keynote, and we built his book completely around that. And we just expanded every section. So it was all the same sections, the same order. We just put more into them and got more in depth, and it really worked well.
There's an interesting point when it comes to editing. I've had some of my work edited and published, but what I found was the editor, maybe it's because a lot of my work tends to be techie stuff, but they take the soul out of the words. I mean, it's technically all correct, the numbers are right, but oh, it's so deadly dull. And it's interesting the balance that you have to strike between a personal tone and also just the information. And also when it comes down to it, I find that's the hardest thing is the promotion, trying to get the work before the eyes of your clients or just people that might be interested. There's so much out there that is vying for their attention.
Absolutely, yes. And it's a great thing to have a plan for promotion as well. So we look at 90 days leading up to the launch and then 90 days after the launch. So I have some templates for that as well. If that answers your question.
Well, it's wondering if it's very time consuming or it's just proper strategic approach to it. Most people say, well, you'll have to do this for 4 months and this for 3 months, and you're going to be on the phone for all this period of time or writing letters and giving talks, and I'm a bit too old for all that, and my mind isn't wired that way. And I'm just wondering if what you do is more strategic and efficient, or is it really you have to go out and do the blitz?
It's strategic and it's efficient, and I love to delegate because what I really love doing is writing. So I delegate as much of everything else as I can to my team, and they're really amazing and they get the job done. So it's wonderful.
Thank you.
Perfect. So let's see. Has anybody else got any comments or questions? Oh, Earl.
Thought of another obstacle. I asked this question once before. Don't you have to become successful to write the book? And I was told, well, you write the book and you become successful. So how would you answer that one?
Well, that goes back a little bit to my competition myth of thinking like I'm not famous, who's going to really read this book? And the truth is that when you write it authentically, you're going to connect with your ideal audience, which will grow your business and help you become more well-known and more widely recognized. So the book comes first.
There you go. I love it because actually I think when you're writing a book, it'll also get you very clear on what you do by writing it down, doing that story, who's the hero, like, you know, you actually just get more clarity, and then you realize it's not about preaching or playing or to everyone. Who is your ideal client, right? Who is those people that are going to love your book? Because it's not for everybody, but it's going to be definitely, you'll hone in on those ideal clients that are going, yeah, I love this. Can't wait to see what Katherine does. Anybody else got comments or questions or?
So, Katherine, a quick question. Would you say the book then would become a well source or a source for blog content, topic content, LinkedIn posts, social media posts, and you can leverage that book continuously?
Yeah, so that's what I mean by repurposing the content. You can take pieces out of it, like if it's social media, maybe 1 or 2 sentences. If it's a LinkedIn article, obviously it'd be a few paragraphs. So you can really repurpose that for like a whole year, just drawing content out of that book.
Excellent.
What would you say would be better, a hard copy book or an ebook?
I would suggest that you do both. And with Amazon, you can, because they have the Kindle version available. And then when someone buys the paperback or hard copy version, it's just printed on demand. So you don't have to like buy 500 copies or whatever first. It just gets done when someone orders it.
Audiobooks, how does that fit into this whole thing? Same difference?
Well, I think that it's always better to expand the number of ways that you can connect with your audience. And we have different ways of learning things. So some people learn better or absorb content better by reading, some by listening, some by watching. So definitely having an audiobook can help you reach a wider audience for sure.
Perfect. Okay, so Katherine, I want to thank you very much for joining us today, and for all our attendees. Thanks for joining us.